Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we have more X-Men. Now, this run by Jed MacKay so far is pretty good in my opinion, but if I can be honest, the last issue was kind of not my favorite because of the way it was written, and also just, the general premise of it was a little bit underwhelming compared to the first issue, which I thought was great. But this issue is much better. It introduces a lot, and it just kind of fleshes out this new age a little bit better, and it got me excited for this whole thing again. So, getting into it, on the very first page, we see that the factory in Alaska that the X-Men are staying in has this group of invaders, this Shrike team as they call themselves, teleporting into it with a man named Vanisher leading them to it. And from the looks of it, it looks like it was just his job to get them in there and not do much else, because the second they're in, this Shrike team immediately starts giving out orders saying, remember, no casualties. Boss has us playing touch with the muties. And remember, in universe, the term muties is a slur, so Vanisher's like, not a real nice word, under his breath, and the soldier gets in his face saying, shut up, you do your job, our boss gets you what you want. So he's getting something out of this, we just don't know what yet, before leaving him there and then turning on this invisibility feature in their suits so they can navigate easily without getting caught. We then see Cyclops driving through the streets of Alaska solo in a red truck saying, stand down, Rogue, please, trust me. Apparently on the phone with her before she hangs up on him, and he says, damn it. And apparently this issue takes place after the second issue of Uncanny X-Men, which isn't out yet, so we don't know what this is about. But if you're watching this in the future and you're going through the whole playlist just binging these X-Men videos, I'll make sure to put that video before this one so you already know the context. So if you're in the future, congrats. Cyclops then starts redialing someone else's number, muttering to himself, I don't know what I expected. Rogue is right there in the name. He then calls up Beast, saying, she didn't say it, but she didn't have to. Rogue is gonna move in. And Beast is like, what? With what resources? Cyclops answers, Gambit, Jubilee, and Logan. Beast hesitates for a second. And? That's it. That's it? Yeah, well, they're living in the woods now, and they just took in 4 strays, which means, then Beast cuts him off, they're gonna get killed? Yes, Cyclops responds, them and their new kids. Well, what do you want to do? Beast asks. If she's moving, then we need to move our plans up. This makes it dangerous for everybody, her X-Men and ours. So whatever's going on, people were really hesitant to see the X-Men move on into this relaunch because it felt super disconnected seeing everybody in different books, seeing everybody split across the US, and in different books, it felt like they were all splitting up now that they were off Krakoa, but they're in touch a lot. Throughout all the videos that we've done so far showcasing this relaunch, we've seen them interact a lot. The X-Men have been in touch with the Uncanny X-Men, Cyclops has been in touch with Phoenix, so it's there's no real disconnect here. They're all it seems like there's an overarching plan, and Cyclops is still at the helm of everything, which is really interesting. So we don't know what this is yet, we don't know what his plans are, but I'm super intrigued to see it because it seems like a consistent direction across all these books, and it's not just a thoughtless relaunch. And you're certain you can't change their minds? Beast asks. Am I certain that I can't tell Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, and Wolverine, possibly 4 of the most pig-headed mutants to ever exist, that they're wrong? Yeah, sure, Hank, no problem. He then sees Chief Robbins and says, look, Hank, I gotta go, before hanging up and then greeting her saying, hey, I'm sorry I missed you the other day for the tour. And she shakes his hand saying, Mr. Summers, it's nice to meet you. But am I to understand that this is going to be a regular occurrence in our town? And we see a bunch of armed soldiers from the Office of National Emergency standing in front of a diner, apparently some event going on, before Cyclops sighs and says, I sincerely apologize, Chief Robbins. I will talk to him. And then he heads into this diner and says, so is that how it's gonna be? Gonna make me look bad in front of the whole town? And then we see him walk up to this table where this head agent from the Office of National Emergency, apparently named Agent Lundqvist, I don't want to say that over and over because I feel like I'm butchering it, but I'll just refer to him as Agent, sitting at this table eating fries saying, yeah, that's how it's gonna be. And Cyclops sits down saying, you seem upset, Agent. Oh, I seem that way, do I, Summers? I assume this is about San Francisco? Cyclops asks, referring to the last issue. The agent then digs into his blueberry pie with a fork, saying, when the US government so kindly gave you and yours that factory, the understanding was that you would stay there. Cyclops snaps back, there was no understanding, Agent Lundqvist, only an implication, and I don't deal in implications. Do you know what was understood? That I was doing the government a favor by taking the factory, because it wasn't a gift, it was a settlement. Or did you forget my court case? Scott Summers versus the United States? Hard to forget, I'd imagine, what with the name. The agent then points a fork at him saying, listen to me, Summers. And Cyclops bangs his hand on the table, spilling his coffee saying, no, you listen to me. Orcus killed scores of my species, unlawfully prisoned many more, and I was held, tortured, readied for a show trial and execution. My eyes were sewn shut. My wife was murdered, all with the tacit permission of the United States. So when I settled for the factory, for the damages done to me personally, that was a gift to you and yours, because I could have won so much more. He then sits back and picks up a menu, as well as his coffee to take a sip, saying, now, is the Office of National Emergency picking up the check? Because our cook's a vegetarian, which means we're all vegetarians, and I could use a BLT. Now, what I love about the scene is that we're tapping into Dark Cyclops a little bit more. You know, the status quo of the X-Men is that Cyclops is kind of the Captain America of the team, you know what I mean? The noble Boy Scout, whereas someone like Logan is just kind of the weird drunk uncle. But in the 2010s, those roles were reversed. We started to see Cyclops go down this path, and then Wolverine, even though Storm was kind of the leader around this period, Wolverine was kind of the main pillar. He was like the main foe to Cyclops. It was those two against each other. So it was kind of like a new age Professor X versus Magneto, and really flipping what you would expect in taking Scott on this really interesting character journey that no one really expected him to be on. And I would say when the Krakoan Age started, that kind of started to be undone, I would say, and then it went back to status quo. Now we're starting to see that a little bit again. Even though Cyclops is back to being the leader, it's cool that now that he has that character history behind him, he can kind of tap into it when he needs to. You know what I mean? Especially following the destruction of their mutant homeland. You know, he's still got that chip on his shoulder. He still has that healthy degree of anger with humanity, specifically the government, that he's able to act on in order to not be pushed around. So really cool. I love that. I love seeing Cyclops go into that territory. And you know, even though that era of evil Cyclops is over, you know, that's still being wrapped into his character. I love that so much. We then jump back to the factory where the other X-Men are starting to realize that they're under attack, with Kid Omega talking to the rest of the team over the psychic comms, saying, as much as it pains me to admit it, Cyclops was right. And we see him reading Beast's mind, who's laying unconscious on the floor, and he's like looking into his memories, checking the last 2 minutes of his conscious memory, saying, it would appear we're under attack. I'm dumping these last couple minutes of his memory to your brains. And Magic watches it all happen, saying, he was hit with an energy beam from the front, but he didn't see whoever did it. And Psylocke jumps into action, saying, camouflage, invisibility, and if neither Quentin nor I picked up their minds, then it's likely that they're shielded from that too, whoever it is. And then Temper jumps into action, saying, they're prepared. Well, how the hell am I supposed to hit something I can't see? Juggernaut asks, and Magic runs past him with a little bit of fire in her eyes, saying, I spent my formative years with demons. They can't hide their souls from me. We jump back to the diner, where the agent starts pulling up a video saying, fact remains, Summers, I'm not happy. San Francisco was a disaster. It was a mutant disaster, with the X-Men right in the middle of it. And Cyclops, looking at his BLT, about to take a bite, says, a mutant disaster that the X-Men defused. One person died, and that person was one of us, not one of you. So, since you guys clearly don't care about us, I'm not sure why you're worried about it. The agent then starts playing a YouTube video that someone apparently captured of them talking to Ben from the last issue, telling him that he's a mutant and all that stuff, exactly like we saw. And the agent says, that is you admitting on camera that people are becoming mutants outside of your normal activation window. They're saying you're contagious, Summers. They're saying that there's a mutant disease. We then see Magic detect 2 soldiers, saying, take him. Juggernaut charges at him, knocking him down, before we see Kid Omega detect 2 more, splash water on him, and then mark him so Psylocke can take him out. And the initial assumption here is that these agents are sneaking in to try and find the mutant from San Francisco, right? Because we saw that they had kept him to figure out what was going on, what his deal was. So he's still at the base right now. But then Psylocke actually reads the minds of these soldiers and tells them they're not here for Ben at all. They're here for Cerebro. We then jump back to the diner where the agent is telling him, this is why I don't need you and your X-Men out there causing me headaches, Summers. You know we've got our own X-Men, right? And if you're not aware, he's referring to the X-Factor series, which just started up, where yes, the government is in fact getting their own little X-Men team for the sake of good publicity between the government and mutants. And Cyclops stays eating his sandwich. I do know about X-Factor, just like I know you have my brother, Alex, leading the team, who has never been able to operate on my level. He then leans forward, putting his sandwich down. Here's what we're gonna do. My team and I are gonna continue doing what we're doing, and you are going to let us. Are you threatening me, Summers? Of course I'm threatening you, he says, taking a bite of his fries, because like I said, I'm doing you a favor. Psylocke, Kid Omega, Juggernaut, Magic, an assassin, a terrorist, a supervillain, and a half-demon, plus Magneto. You want them busy, because you want them to be my X-Men, not my Brotherhood. We then see the last of these soldiers sneak into where Cerebro is being hidden. Look at that, one of them says, the world's last Cerebro, and they start unclipping the pins of grenades, saying, well, don't get too attached, it's about to go extinct. We burn this thing down, and we clip the X-Men's wings for good. And then Temper, stepping out of hiding, says, that's what you want, isn't it? You want to keep us from finding one another, keep us separated, divided, fractured, hopeless. And they launch the grenade, saying, it's just a girl. girl, the one without a rap sheet. And the other one chimes in, but boss said not to kill any of them. Lundqvist was an operator. He'll understand collateral damage. Burn her down, basically authorizing themselves to kill her. And she catches the grenades with both hands, saying, "You're going to burn me?" And then we see the ice coming out of her eyes, saying, "I don't burn, idiots." And then she turns them to ice. "I move heat around. The heat from your thermite becomes the ice that holds you. And I do too have a rap sheet. I killed men just like you, men who came to my home like you did with weapons like you have." And then she walks away as they're trapped there, saying, "I'm done being collateral damage." And then we see Cyclops and the agent outside this diner finishing up their confrontation. The agent saying, "That's it? You think a handful of you can fight the entire US military? If they make me," Cyclops answers. "And if it comes to it, I can always call my wife." We then see Magik teleport the team in with all of their incapacitated soldiers trapped, and Cyclops unfazed because, like they said, he knew this attack was probably gonna come. And Cyclops tells him, "Tell this to your bosses. They don't want Scott Summers versus the United States to kick off for real this time." He then heads back into the diner saying, "Psylocke, handle the prisoner transfer. I want to wash my hands after dealing with our friend here." And then we see him go back into the diner, take off his jacket, and start panting before leaning over the sink saying, "Damn it, not now. Get it together. Lead, damn it. Breathe, breathe, breathe." And it looks like to me he's having either a panic attack or an anxiety attack. I'm guessing a panic attack the way he took off the jacket and is actively sweating, trying to prevent any feeling of suffocation. And I gotta say, if that's the path that they're going down with Cyclops, I love it. I love that addition so much, because Cyclops has always been that guy, right? Even when he was in his dark days, like I mentioned before, he was that guy. He was always so self-assured and certain and powerful, and I love that, and I think everybody loves that about him. So to add this little level of weakness, this little bit of self-doubt and like nervousness, right? This mental aspect that stands to hinder him and, you know, has him literally trying to convince himself to lead, something that he's always been good at. With everything with Krakoa that has happened, everything leading up to this point, in this position that he's in now, where he's kind of the underdog swinging up at the government trying to take him out, it makes sense why he would be a little bit flustered, why he would be dealing with this, because just because he's dealt with it before doesn't mean he's always going to be okay, or that he's going to get better at dealing with it over time. We're kind of seeing a mental and emotional aftermath to everything that he's already dealt with. It's kind of everything catching up to him. And to me, that's really, really cool. That adds something new and interesting that I don't think we've ever seen with Cyclops. Like, suffering to that level, struggling to lead to that level, like, I don't think that's ever been done because of something regarding mental health. And if Jed MacKay can actually carry this out in a really sophisticated and tasteful way, that's gonna be really, really cool to me. Because I know it's not the same thing, but I've dealt with social anxiety, and this feeling of struggling to do the things that even you know that you're good at is so real, especially after you deal with confrontation. When you deal with a ton of different things, a ton of different people, a ton of different elements trying to keep you down, trying to prevent what you're doing. And when you actively look at Cyclops' situation and everything going on in continuity right now, it makes perfect sense why he would be struggling with this at this time. Because like I said before, he's that guy. He always has been. He is the leader. That's what he does. And even here in this panel, we can see that he knows that's what he's supposed to do. That's what he's always been, and he wants to live up to that. But he's still a person. He still deals with emotions. He still deals with this thing. You know, we saw Rogue basically having a mental breakdown and an existential crisis over what her purpose was in Uncanny X-Men. We saw Wolverine leave at the end of the very first issue in this series. So everyone is struggling with this. Everyone is struggling with the loss of their home. Cyclops is the leader, and he has to keep a strong face for them. But he's still feeling all of this too. He's still dealing with the repercussions of it as well. And everything that he mentioned in the diner with the court case, the fact that his eyes were sewn shut, like all of this stuff is hard to deal with. And when you're trying to keep a strong face for your team, a lot of younger people under him trying to set an example, he can't exactly talk to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, he could talk to Beast, but again, still a member of the team, still someone he feels like he has to be strong for. He could go to Magneto, but especially at this point in Magneto's character arc, where it seems like he's regressed a little bit and he's back to that, like, being really, really confrontational and trying to be super menacing to humans because of the circumstances, he's probably not gonna be the most emotionally available. He doesn't really have a rock that he can go to. He doesn't really have someone in his corner that he can be real with. Like, Wolverine was probably that person, but he was so fed up that he left. So if Wolverine can't take it, right, that does not bode well for Cyclops. He could talk to his wife, but only when she's available telepathically, and she's so busy saving the universe, saving lives constantly, like we've seen in her series, that she's basically unavailable 24 hours a day, and they don't really know when she's coming back, right? If she's gonna go out there to save lives in the universe, she's probably gonna be caught up with that forever. The love of his life is out in space. He can hardly talk to her, much less have that connection. And when he does get the time with her, he probably doesn't want to bother her with that stuff. stuff. So when you have all of that emotional turmoil already packed in, and then you add someone like Agent Lundqvist and this Shrike Force coming at their throats, literally attacking them, trying to sabotage them, trying to manipulate them, causing problems, embarrassing them in front of the town, destabilizing their position as like, we're just gonna stay here and do our thing, right? Like trying not to cause trouble, and then actively disrupting that just creates more stress. And then you have everything going on in Uncanny X-Men, like we saw with him on the phone with Rogue, and talking about needing to move up plans. There's anxiety around that too, because whatever is going on, he's trying to keep it in control, and he's trying to prevent people from dying. Even though they do still have this connection, like I was saying earlier, they are split up, and he's still worried about these people. These people are still his family and friends. And then, like he also mentioned, his brother is helping the government who's actively trying to take him down. So there's all of these things going on. None of it is working in his favor. And then there's all the stuff just in this series alone with the Fourth Army, and trying to figure out what's going on with Ben, trying to figure out what's going on with these New Mutants. There is so much going on around him that could all come crashing down at any moment. And basically, when he was confronted with all of this in the form of threats from Agent Lundqvist, the only thing that he could say was, well, we'll start a world war if we need to. Like, if you push me anymore, I'll fight back. But saying that and doing that are two very different things. He could do it if he wanted to, but obviously he doesn't want it to come to that. He doesn't want more problems. He doesn't want to give these people trying to lock them up more reason to do so by allowing them to pull them into a war, right? He's trying to avoid all this stuff. He's trying to just live. So like, you see a lot of X-Men fans like, oh great, the X-Men books are back to status quo, like we've seen a million times before. But it's kind of cool because we're seeing Cyclops literally deal with the effects of that in real time. I'm very, very curious to see how all of this is going to go. Again, I think this team is great. I think this series is great. This issue may or may not be the best one yet. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching.